Hello, my friend, and welcome to the 544th episode of the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host today for the first time in 8 years, 544 episodes. I had a guest on back to back, and I have decided to merge both interviews into one long, epic, thought-provoking, entertaining, engaging, educational, inspiring, uplifting, funny episode. I have mentioned Ben a couple times. Brian Podolak, just interviewed him. You heard that go live on 543. He introduced us. Ben is nearly 80 years old, and he is still in the game. And the value he brings, the stories, the wisdom, the experience, it's worth 2+ hours and a whole lot more. Okay, so if you still need help after listening to this, check out makeeverysale.com. Check out sellmoreofeverything.com if you want to join us on the live weekly calls. Ask your questions, engage in real time. My Power Days, if you still need other help for hiring people, salespeople in particular, findyoursalespro.com, or just go to the Contact Us page and we'll find a time to talk. Okay? Get you one of those or all of them, and then come back and listen to this a couple of times. My interview with Ben Gay III. Ben Gay III, all the way from Northern California, author of The Closers 1, The Closers 2, The Closers 3. I don't know. I could spend an hour talking about your books, but let's talk about you, shall we? Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Wes. I appreciate it. I've been looking forward to this.
So before I hit record, you were telling me some things, and I'm like, let me just hit record. Talking about Charles Manson, we're talking about astronauts, we're talking about Napoleon Hill. Are all of those applicable to sales and marketing?
Well, actually, they are very much so. Most things, as you know, are applicable to sales and marketing. If you're dating someone and trying to move forward, or get married, or whatever, that's sales and marketing. When I'm through with this, Gigi and I are going out to dinner. Gigi's my wife. I talk about her frequently. Gigi and I are going out to dinner, and I'm already plotting on how to get her to pick the restaurant I want to go to, which is an art unto itself.
After 26 years, I have learned how to discover where my wife wants to go.
Very clever.
Should I share that secret?
Sure.
So you get in the car, you just tell her, honey, we're going out. So it's a secret. So you get in the car and you say, she's like, tell me where it's going to be. I'm like, you need to guess. And when the first one she names, you go, that's exactly it. I can never pull one over on you.
Amazing, isn't it?
Then you just got to hope you don't need reservations, or, well, you could do it. You could do it a little bit earlier,
and she's telling her friends, I've got this thing you won't believe. Wes asked me where I want to go, and it's a guessing game. And so I tell him what I guessed, because that's where I want to go. And he always acts surprised. So you're both happy. You both thought you won, which is selling at its finest.
Yep. Because 9 times out of 10, I don't care where we go. I'm happy to just be out and hanging out with her. So she's more particular than me. So I'm like, I'll let you pick.
My secret is food is fuel.
Yeah.
And I really don't care where I have it. I just want to sit and talk to her.
Yeah, exactly. Too funny. So we were talking about, you've been at this game for a minute. Is that fair to say?
I'm very sorry, I didn't understand the question.
I said you've been in this sales game for a minute or two?
Yeah, a minute or two. I have been in commission selling since I was 14. Literally, I sold Krispy Kreme donuts in Atlanta, won a citywide contest, and won a bicycle, and I was hooked. And then I opened my own lawn mowing service and figured out a clever way to do that and not have to mow lawns. And so
Mark Twain, huh?
Yeah, very similar to the paint the fence or whatever it was. Yeah, my father. I asked him one day for a self-winding watch, and he said, "Well, that would be a waste of money." And I said, "No, I've seen them on television. You move your wrist, and this thing moves around. He said, I know, but it would always be running down. And then I realized that that was some sort of insult to my lack of activity, which led to a discussion of, by the way, rather than spend the summer sitting on the couch, I want you to get up and do something. And he talked me into, he said, like mow lawns. I said, well, I don't have a lawnmower in the, he said, we have a lawnmower in the basement, the one that the guy comes and uses to mow our yard. From now on, you're going to do that. And you can use the lawnmower. Well, I went out and mowed lawns for a day or two. And he came home from work and I was sitting on the sofa again. He said, something's gone wrong with the plan. The plan was I didn't like mowing lawns in Atlanta in the summertime. Hot, humid. Yeah. So he said, well, you remember how you sold all those donuts? And I said, yeah. He said, well, let's do the donut sales again. You go out and sell the jobs. Here's the secret. Tell them to pay you what they think it's worth after you're done. Don't set a price. And I said, well, you might get cheated. He said, no, you'll make 2 or 3 times as much money as you would have if you set a price. Now, you hire your friends to mow the lawns. You sell the job, you inspect the job, you collect the money, and you give them half the money. I said, well, they won't want to give up half the money. He said, Ben, they're going to get as much as they ever would have gotten, probably plus some. So they're happy and you're happy. Well, in the growing season in Atlanta for the next 3, 4, 5 years, I had 20, 25 kids working for me. It was all I could do in the afternoon, run around and inspect the jobs and collect the money. In fact, sometimes it took 2 days to collect the money. So that kept me in selling and commission selling. I was raised 2 blocks out the front gate of East Lake Country Club in Atlanta, Bobby Jones' home course, and therefore was allowed to sit in the men's grill so long as I didn't say anything with my father and his friends, which included whoever the chairman of the board of Coca-Cola was at the time, because that came with a membership, the people who started Home Depot, and bigwigs in probably most of Fortune's 500 companies, because if you were a mover and a shaker, you belonged to East Lake, probably. And so I grew up in an atmosphere. Jim Newman, my old friend with Pace Seminars, coined the term comfort zone. My comfort zone was I thought everybody was successful. Everybody I knew was doing well, had on fancy watches, drove big cars, and played golf at East Lake. So I listened intently and discovered most of them got their career started in selling, professional selling. And they all, as presidents, CEOs, whatever of their companies, they were all still in selling the concept, selling people on working for them and so on. So I almost didn't know there was anything else to do. And then I got into I was number 1 salesman at Macy's in Atlanta. It was called Davison's, and various other places. But Wednesday, September 15th, 1965, I answered an ad in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. It said, if you know anything about marketing plans, want to make more money, dial this number. Well, I didn't know what a marketing plan was, but I was hooked on making more money. So I dialed the number. Jimmy Rucker, my high school running buddy, first business partner, and the greatest salesman I ever personally worked with, answered the ad, walked into an office. I'd been given 10 minutes to get there by the guy who ran the ad. And I walked in and I said, hi, my name's Ben Gay. And from behind me on the couch area, a guy said, Ben Gay, and started laughing. I'm used to that. So I turned around and there was this curly-headed guy sitting there. And I said, hi, my name is Ben Gay. What's yours? And he said, Zig Ziglar. And I said, with a name like Zig Ziglar, you're making fun of Ben Gay? You got to be kidding. Well, I'd never heard of Zig. He was a cookware salesman in Columbia, South Carolina. If you weren't in his church groups or whatever, no one had heard of him. And he answered the same ad for the same reason. And Jimmy Rucker, Zig, and I all began the rocket ride of our lives that day. And I went from not a whole lot of money, because I was working for my father as a food broker, retail, detail salesman, and he didn't believe in paying that position a lot of money. I went from that, it was about $100 a week adjusted for inflation, $1,000 a week now, but I went from that to $40,000 a month in high speed, and then won a national contest. Zig Ziglar got the Rolls Royce. I got the mystery prize, which was presidency of the company. So at age 25, I was the president of the largest direct sales multi-level marketing company in the world at the time, Holiday Magic Cosmetics. We were bigger than Amway and Shackley combined. And so people say, well, do you ever get tired of selling? I think, and do what? Be a mortician, or which, by the way, involves a lot of selling. So
Yeah.
I sort of stumbled. I was born into it. Would probably be a better way to say it. I didn't know that you weren't supposed to own your own business and be successful. That's all I saw around me.
Mm-hmm. My first paid keynote talk was in Vegas to about 400 sales and marketing people for it was ICCFA or ICFFA. I'd have to look it up, but cemeteries and cremation.
Oh, okay.
They had 2 conferences a year. One was for sales and marketing, and one was like the general meeting. But it's big business. It's a lot of
sure
skills.
Is. I was a script writer and sales trainer for SCI, Service Corporation International, okay. And they are huge in that business. And then I did the American Cemetery Association's National Convention and the National Cemetery Association, and discovered they hated each other. I couldn't figure out why. You both sold pre-need, you both sold grave sites, funeral services, and so on. Why hate each other? But there were 2 organizations at each other's throats at all time. Yeah. Interesting group of people. And when you're with them, as you know, in a convention mode, that I'm sorry your husband died, Mrs. Jones, goes away. They're party animals.
Oh, yeah. Everybody's a party animal at a conference. You show up and you're like, are y'all, is this college again? What the hell is going on here, people? I can't party that hard anymore.
Yeah, I can't either.
Oh my gosh. So what did you say it was 1955 when you answered the ad?
65.
65. Because if I did my research right, you were 14 in 1956.
I guess that was right. I was born in 1942. So, yep. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that's amazing. So Zig got the roles and you became president. Was it president and CEO?
Yeah. Yeah. There was an owner of the company, William Penn Patrick, who ran for governor against Reagan. Interesting character in his own right, and one of my several mentors I was lucky enough to have. But Zig coming in second really galled him a little bit, since I was 18 years younger. Zig was in the Navy when I was born, so it was quite an age difference.
Oh, okay.
Although he looked youthful into his later years. But on bad days, because he was now working for me, I had to talk to him about holding this meeting or doing this or stop this or whatever. And occasionally I would have a rough day and he'd say, how's it going? I said, Zig, here's the deal. You give me the keys to the Rolls Royce and I will give you the keys to the front door. And he said, oh, no, you beat me fair and square. He was old enough to know I'd stepped in a bear trap. What I won, the money was great, but what I won was a whole lot of aggravation and trouble and so on when you're running a big company.
Mm-hmm. Why did they hand such a big responsibility off to such a young guy?
Well, interesting. It was a mystery prize. I didn't know what I'd won or what it was until they flew me to California to tell me. Meanwhile, before that, I had, somebody must have liked me. I don't know. They asked me to go along with William Penn Patrick, on a 25-city tour. And my job basically was to introduce him and probably carry his baggage. I don't recall. We had a corporate plane, but I'm sure I helped load and unload. We all did. And in that 25 days, Bill and I got to know each other pretty well. And my introduction of him got a little longer till my introduction was about as long as his talk was, because I liked the sound of the roar of the crowd. So when they flew me out and Bill took me to lunch to tell me what I had won, I said, why was it a mystery prize? Sort of along the lines of your question. He said, in case someone won it who I didn't like, then I would have changed the prize, given away, another Rolls Royce or something, I don't know. But he said, we spent some time together and I liked you and you're sharp. And with a little guidance, I think you could do a great job here. And then he hired the guidance for me. He's the one who retained Dr. Napoleon Hill to be my personal coach and mentor. Probably in less than a year after taking on the job. I was doing fine, but Dr. Hill came to the office to give Bill an award for being one of the 5 greatest people in the world or in the United States or something. And I didn't even know Dr. Hill was in the building. While they were giving the award to Bill, apparently on the way back from the back of my office was right up front, his was in the back. Somewhere in that long hallway, he said to Dr. Hill, I've got a young man who could really benefit from a little age and wisdom and so on. Dr. Hill biologically was old enough to be my great-grandfather. He was 84 the day we met, and I was 25. So he said, I think he needs someone he can talk to in confidence. He sort of hired a Southern Catholic priest for me. And Dr. Hill agreed. And by the time they got to my office, they had a done deal. Bill knocked on the door, opened it, and I saw an older man standing there. So I jumped up, being a Southerner, run around, introduced myself. I said, hi, I'm Ben Gay. And Dr. Hill said, Bill, before I could answer, Bill said, that's Dr. Napoleon Hill, Ben. Like I was supposed to know. He didn't look like the publicity pictures in his early books or anything. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. And Dr. Hill said, call me Nappy. And that started our first argument. Till the day he died, I didn't say the word nappy to anyone, anywhere, anytime. When he died, I could start telling the story. I would structure entire conversations with Dr. Hill around the word, because if I said Dr. Hill to him, he would say nappy, and that would take up 5 minutes of debate. So I would have whole conversations where I didn't call him anything. And but we started that friendship. The cute story, Wes, Rodney Dangerfield, the old comedian, used to say that his family tied a pork chop around his neck so the family dog would play with him. Well, Dr. Hill was attracted to me by a $50,000 check in 1967 that Bill Patrick put around my neck. And so that was the basis of our friendship. And at the end of the first year, Dr. Hill started asking subtly if we were going to go forward. And I said, well, I'm sure I am. Let me talk to Bill Patrick. So I went to Bill and I said, Dr. Hill's hinting around that he'd like to work with me for another year. He said, well, that's up to you. Well, as president of the company, I knew that. I spent a lot of money that I never discussed with Bill. And I said, well, as a courtesy, I wanted to run it by you. He said, Ben, it's your money. Do what you want. So I discovered that Dr. Hill's $50,000 the second year came out of my checking account. And I took the long walk down the hallway. And by the time I got back to my office, I said, Dr. Hill, will you do it for a second year? And he said, sure. And I wrote him a personal check. So, and then he
personal, not corporate.
No, personal.
Okay.
I assume we took it as a deduction of some sort.
Right.
But Bill Patrick made it clear that it was a corporate gift the first year. Second year was up to me.
Right.
But it was money well spent.
So let's talk about Napoleon Hill for a bit, because I grew up, with his book, and I don't know, in the last 5 years or so, I've heard different things, like not so good about him. Like he wasn't,
Signed.
Oh my gosh.
Not to me. I'll tell you a cute story about that later, but go ahead. What'd you hear?
Well, just that maybe he didn't actually interview all these people, or that he died bankrupt or whatever. Just like not putting him in such a good light. I mean,
I've heard some of that stuff. All I can tell you is about the 2.5 years I spent with him, in which time he told me about his ups and downs. He had a horrible family life. He used to sit up at our house and look at my son and my wife and said, I'd give anything for this. Lovely home, lovely wife, happy kid, and so on. And he had, to say the least, an unhappy relationship with most of his family off and on. And he admitted readily to having gone broke a couple of times. A good friend of mine who I bought a company from was the guy who gave W. Clement Stone his first copy of Think and Grow Rich. And Clem Stone was so enthralled with it that he made it required reading for everybody at Combined Insurance, became Dr. Hill's manager and partner to a degree, and brought him back from the dead. Think and Grow Rich had its little run, like books did before Amazon back in those days. And he had pretty much gone in. The Law of Success, what he first wrote, didn't sell. It was priced too high. It was in the middle of the Depression. And most people haven't read as much as is in that one book in their lives. So it was horrible marketing. So he did the condensed version, Think and Grow Rich. And between he and Clem Stone, turned it into one of the best sellers of all time. As Dr. Hill, I said to him one day in our house, there was a copy on the coffee table that my wife had put there in sort of a tacky little gesture, like we all sit around at night reading it. And I said, oh, look, Dr. Hill, a copy of Think and Grow Rich. How does it feel to have written one of the best-selling books of all time? And Dr. Hill said, very knowingly, best-selling, least read. He said, pick up any copy of Think and Grow Rich you see anywhere and see if the spine has been cracked. And I found out later it hadn't. Let me tell you a quick story about this. This copy was given to me by a lady who used to work for me, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. It's not the original copy I got on September 15th, 65. And I went to open it and she said, be careful. And I said, what? And she said, well, the spine's never been cracked. So I've never cracked it either. It was opened once when Dr. Hill signed it for a Mrs. Grace Dixon. And then I sincerely believe it was not opened again for 75 years until I opened it. Mm-hmm. Sandra bought it at a garage sale for 50 cents. Mm. Now, I've been in publishing in this type of business a long time. An uncracked book, 75 years old, cherry red on the front, cherry red on the back, bleached out on the spine. Mrs. Grace Dixon, I can tell you the story without having met her, know her, and I'm sure she's gone to her reward by now. Mrs. Grace Dixon heard Napoleon Hill was coming to town, somehow went to wherever he was, probably paid to get in, listened to his presentation and his book offer. Books at the back of the room, come up to the front, I'll sign them. Stood in line to buy a book, stood in line to get it signed, took it home, stuck it in a bookcase, and there it sat for 75 years, bleaching out the spine. Mm-hmm. And whoever, God bless her, Mrs. Grace Dixon was, she got zero benefit from this book. Mm-hmm. And yet I know dozens and dozens, probably hundreds, if I thought about it, hundreds of people all around the world who credit their entire career and all the money they've ever made to that book. Mm-hmm. Of course, I know that about my books too, but speaking of Dr. Hill, now, did he meet all those people? I don't know. We're salespeople. Things get elaborated and exaggerated and so on. Mm-hmm. But people said, he never met so-and-so, or he never met so-and-so. Invariably, they always name somebody mm-hmm. that I have or have seen pictures of him with. Mm-hmm. So he did. They didn't have photoshopping in the 20s and 30s. If you got a picture with somebody, you were with them.
Oh, no, the aliens did. And they gave us that technology.
So I don't know. Just as I don't know the full truth about a single human being on the planet.
Mm-hmm. Hell, we don't know our own truths. We lie to ourselves and misremember.
Yeah. Oh, usually to our advantage.
Yeah, always to our advantage.
Yeah.
Unless it pays to be the victim. I always tell people, say, look, success takes daily effort. One good excuse, you can sit on your ass for the rest of your life. So like, give me a break,
I can tell you this, he was a very wise man who was of a tremendous help to me, and he didn't die broke. $50,000 back then was $500,000. Now,
yeah, I just looked it up.
He made $500,000 from Bill, $500,000 from me at least once, probably twice. The second payment doesn't stick in my mind. I don't recall a story to go with it.
Well,
but I suspect he died 2.5 years into our relationship. I suspect his estate owes me $25,000.
Interesting. Well, I pulled it up here online while you were talking. $50,000. So it says calculate the value of 50 grand. And I'll hit it again just to make sure. So from 1966 to today, $409,550.
Okay.
And the fact that you could write a check for that amount and forget about it or not be sure, that tells me you must have been doing okay back then.
Yeah, we were doing pretty well.
It's so true in that best-selling least read. I have bought his book many times as gifts, particularly for high schoolers when family members, cousins, second, third cousins, whatever, nephews, nieces, and I write in pencil, faint. So I don't want them flipping through to easily see it, and I'll usually open it up and write it in the gutter, right in the center. And sometimes I'll write it a second time, a little in the outer edge. But I say, when you get to this spot, call me and I'll give you $20. And I'll do it again. When you get to this spot, call me. I'll give you another $20. I've never been called.
Yeah.
Never been called.
It's a tragedy, but it's true. Have the Earl Nightingale, another friend of mine and mentor, told me, he said, I think it's in one of his recordings, but he also told me over dinner one time, he said, Ben, if you want to keep a secret, write it in a book, publish the book, and put one copy of the book in every library in the world. No one will ever discover your secret.
Yeah. I always tell people, give away your best stuff for free up front.
Mm-hmm.
What? Like, look, the tire kickers, they'll get what they want and go off. They won't bother you. And the others, they'll go try to implement it, and they'll realize it's harder than they thought, and they'll call you and pay you for it. So I'm like, don't sweat it. What?
That's how I got into paid coaching along those lines. I'm a sucker for trying to help people, and you look like you could be a salesperson. I've recruited hundreds, if not thousands, of salespeople out of restaurants, waiters, servers, so and so, who are used to dealing with people, and cranky people and good people and bad people and so on. Some of the greatest salespeople I've ever met I met them in restaurants, and they just didn't know they didn't know how good they were at those things.
Yes.
And so I just encourage them to rechannel their thinking and their talents. And those that have done very, very well.
Yeah, I've got two daughters that are servers now in restaurants, and both do well, and they're always complimented. When we go in, the staff loves them. And my second oldest son, he still has no idea how good he is. He's working the count. He loves guns, right? So he took this job at a sporting goods store that opened up, and top salesman immediately. And he's only 23. What is he? 23? 23. I got 7 kids, so cut me some slack. Just number one salesman, but they just don't pay very much, mm-hmm. They'll get some bonuses. So he's leaving now, but he got all these perks. So like when you sell a manufacturer's, scopes, binoculars, whatever, you get points. So he was able to redeem. It looked like it was Christmas. It's just boxes coming in because he just rifles and binoculars and $1,000 scopes because he just sold that much so easily. He's like, yeah, I don't know if I want to be in sales. And I'm like, what? Like, he has no idea how good he is.
I was number one when I was making $100 a week. Again, you have to adjust that for inflation, but it was just in an industry that didn't pay very well.
Yeah,
called my father, and the food brokers business. So you just need to get him where the money is. My brother-in-law is sort of an interesting character. And among his many talents is he's a great trout fisherman. And I said to him one day, David, what's the secret of all the trout you catch? It's unbelievable. He said, well, first of all, I go to where the trout are.
Mm-hmm.
So, you got to know your territory. And so what your son needs to do, it sounds like he's doing fine, but you need someone who pays cash in addition to pins, badges, and certificates. You need to get him in a spot that A, he enjoys, and B, where the money is.
Mm-hmm.
I was selling cosmetics with the last name Gay. Can you imagine the heat I took in the early 60s?
Yeah.
But I thought, well, that's true. I am taking a little grief over it, but I'm making a few months in $40,000 a month based on your schedule. That's 400 and some odd, low $400,000 a month. Mm-hmm. And I joined when I was 23. Mm-hmm. I didn't care. They could have called me anything they wanted.
Sure.
I was fine.
I was selling mobile homes after I ended up unemployed. I was on unemployment when my second son was born. I had a little tiff with a stock brokerage firm. It took me 3 years to win it, but in the meantime, I had to put food on the table.
Yeah, you still got to eat.
I was selling mobile homes in Mobile, Alabama. And my first year, I was like 26th in the nation out of like 2,200 salespeople. I was promoted to general manager, given my own store after like 16, 17 months. But I was, I forget where it was. I think I was still in sales, I could have been the GM, but I was still selling. And somebody came in, these two women came in, and all of our trailers were locked. You had to come into the store. We met you, sat down, kind of got a feel for what was going on, because not everybody was qualified, right, financially. Yeah. And didn't want to go spend an hour showing you trailers, and you got a bankruptcy from 3 weeks ago, and people would literally come in doing that. And I'm like, what are you thinking?
They lost their home, so they need a trailer.
Yeah, well, hell, they would lose their trailer and want another trailer. I'm like, it doesn't work that way, unless you got cash. But these two women came in and said, yeah, we'd like to look at some of your trailers, mobile homes. And I said, darling, as long as you buy it from me, you can call it anything you want. It's like, let's go look at some trailers. I mean, like, I don't care what you call it. Just buy one from me, Oh, man. So you bring up something else. It's got me thinking. When you go from making a little bit of money to a whole lot of money, even by today's standards, 40 grand a month would be a lot of money. And most people can't handle a big shift like that. You see all the time, somebody wins the lottery, and within 3 to 5 years, they're bankrupt, their family's destroyed. They say it's the worst thing that ever happened to them. How did you handle that kind of success so quickly?
Comfort zones. Jim Newman, Pace Seminars, old friend of mine, coined that term, the comfort zones. I was raised around money. My families, they weren't rich, but Dad did very well. And all of his friends did very well. And some were ultra wealthy. We were at Holiday Magic offices one day, and for training before I won the contest and became president. Zig and I and a bunch of people were out there to be trained. And one day they announced, we're going to San Francisco today. We were over in Marin County across the bay. And I said, great, why? Because I was busy trying to learn my scripts and everything. I said, well, we're going to, Fred Pape was the president of the company at the time. we're going to Fred's favorite jeweler and everybody's going to get a diamond pinky ring. And then we're going to his favorite shoe place and we're all going to get alligator shoes. I was raised at East Lake Country Club. The only place I saw a pinky ring was in a gangster movie.
Yeah.
Classy people don't wear diamond pinky rings. And alligator shoes are fine as long as they have cleats on the bottom so you don't slip while playing golf. But not wearing them in society. I said, well, I'll get to miss that trip then. I'm going to stay here and study. I've been to San Francisco off and on over the years. I know what it looks like. Thank you very much. And there's this awkward pause, and Fred Pape explains to me that it's sort of a condition of employment. Well, I was stubborn at that. I said, Fred, it's point. If you want to buy it for me, the ring and the shoes, fine. Understand I'm not going to wear them. And I'm sure not going to spend my money on something I'm not going to wear. So if that's a condition of employment, I guess we're done. And he went away and the subject never came up again. They all went and got their diamond pinky rings and so on. So my comfort zone was set high. Let me show you something. This is a young man that we adopted, Gigi and I adopted. I met him when I was teaching public speaking at Lompoc Federal Penitentiary, similar to my San Quentin course. And he came up to me, asked if he could come in. And I said, well, of course. And he said, now I won't have to speak, right? And I said, of course not. You know, if you don't want to, it's the number one psychological fear of people. So if you don't have, so we walked in the side door of the cafeteria where they held the classes, and that put us at the front of the room. And everybody looked up. And I said, lady and gentlemen, there was a female guard in the room. I said, lady and gentlemen, we have a special guest tonight. Most of you know him. His name is Lamont Bowen. I just officially met him outside. And he's just going to say a few words to us. And I had my hand on his shoulders. And I could feel him tense up. And he was built like a weightlifter anyway. And but he did about 5 minutes, and he was spectacularly good. Didn't have much inventory, but spectacularly good. And got a standing ovation from 200 inmates when he finished, which was semi-amazing. So I sort of took him under my wing. We helped him get his GED. He was a high school dropout. I'm not sure he ever dropped in, but he dropped out for sure or didn't finish. And got him his GED. And then when he got out, he called me one day. He said, Ben, I think by then he was calling me Dad, because he said, I want you two to adopt me. And so we did, unofficially, but we did. And he said, I need a favor. And I said, what's that? He said, I've decided to go to college. I said, fantastic. And he said, so I need a cosigner on my student loan. And I must have hesitated for a second. He said, Dad, you will never have to pay a dime. But I don't, I'm 22 or something with a criminal history and no credit and no money. His plan was to get out of prison. His plan, a friend told me, was to get out of prison, stick up somebody, get $300 or $400 to finance his way back into the drug business. When I met him, he was 19 in federal prison, had already been sentenced to, I think, 5 years or something for drug dealing. So if I hesitated, I'm sorry for it, but I did probably. And he said, you won't have to pay a dime. I said, fine. So I told Gigi, we're going to co-sign for the kids' college education. We did. It took him about 5 years to get through. If you had never been to high school, college was a bit of a challenge, but he graduated. Pause, 4, 5, 6 months, phone rings. Dad, I need a favor. And I said, okay. What do you need? He said, I'm going to law school, and I just need one of those guarantees. You'll never have to pay a dime. So no hesitation. We guaranteed his law school. And then I'm guessing 6, 8 months ago, he called me. He said, Dad, I need a favor. I said, how much is this one going to cost me? None of the others really cost me anything. But I said, how much is this going to cost me? He said, oh, no. This is a letter of recommendation. I'm up for federal judgeship in an experiment they're going to do with juveniles. And which, if you stop and think about it, a 19-year-old kid, federal prison, et cetera. Now you're a lawyer and up for a judgeship. I would hate to be the kid that goes before Lamont and tries to run a story by Judge Bowen. He's not only heard all the stories, he's lived them all.
So he's a judge now?
I don't think the COVID interfered with something, but I wrote the letter and he's confident he's going to be. So 19-year-old high school dropout Judge Lamont Bowen to Judge Bowen with a book, Don't Let Your Past Hold You Back. There's a little bit about me in here, not much, but is where he went. Now, here's the difference between Ben Gay and Lamont Bowen. I was born to two classy, educated people. I was raised 2 blocks out the front gate of Eastlake Country Club. Lamont was born to 2 uneducated, unclassy people, at least his father was. He got in a gun battle with his stepfather. Give you some idea of how we were raised differently. So my comfort zone was you hang out with the chairman of the board of Coca-Cola and you do well and you drive nice cars and live nice. Lamont's was you get a Cadillac, put a fake Rolls-Royce grill on it, wear a white fur coat and a floppy hat, and that's success. His comfort zone was set differently than mine. If I'd been born in the barrios of San Diego and Los Angeles, I probably would have been the top drug dealer in my area at the time, and or dead and or in prison. So I'm not trying to be humble. I worked hard and I'm semi-talented and I've studied my craft, professional selling and speaking very well. But I'm also fully aware that my comfort zones were set high through accident of birth. You and I could have been born in Botswana, I'm probably not pronouncing that right, in a jungle hut, or we wouldn't be talking on Zoom today, probably. So comfort zones are a whole lot of it. Now, if you are not in the right comfort zone at birth, as soon as you figure out how the game works, you got to reset it, change it. You were talking about the people who win the lottery, which, by the way, in California is up to $600 and some odd million this today is the drawing. I just heard it on the news. Before whoever wins it should pick up their check, I really believe there should be a law that you must first get with Charles Schwab, a certified fee-based financial planner, et cetera, and learn how to be a millionaire before you get the million or the 600 million, or else everybody in your family that you know will soon have a house. And because they don't have any money, the houses in a few years will be repossessed for property taxes and you will be broke. So in my case, how I took on a whole bunch of money in a hurry was I'd always been around it. It just really wasn't a big deal to me. And I didn't, to the point, I didn't go to buy the pinky rings and the alligator shoes. Didn't fit what I was raised around.
But how does somebody change that mentality? I see people all the time. I see salespeople that will always negotiate, accept a discount, then complain that, oh, our product's priced too high. I'll see business owners not raise their prices, not charge accordingly. A friend of mine I do jujitsu with, he's detailing my brother-in-law's truck right now. So I'm doing that, just kind of the late Christmas gift. He left his truck here for a couple of weeks and super dirty. I'm like, he's always helped me. I'm like, detailing his truck. And I told my buddy, I said, look, he's a mobile detailer. He's very good. He wants, he'll do like a 8-hour project on a car. Right. And I'm like, my brother-in-law, that would be a waste. He abuses stuff. Right. He does such meticulous work, but his own stuff is like, he's not cleaning it. I'm like, just like 2 hours, just like, give me a price for 2 hours and just get it clean, not crazy. And I go out and he's already like, I did a little extra, put this coat. I'm like, so I gave him one of my books. I'm like, dude, you got to stop doing that. Right. Like, it's okay to go a little bit above and beyond.
Yeah,
but it's like, we're friends. I'm giving him the business. I'll pay whatever. But I'm like, don't do that. Charge accordingly. If you're going to do more, charge more. But people, they have a hard time with that. I think that's why they say 95% of businesses go out of business, blah, blah, blah. I think because people, they don't know how to negotiate, how to charge what they're worth. So how can people change their comfort zones?
Hang out with people who've already changed theirs would be number one. And number two, and this is sort of out of order, but once you get in a financial position where you don't need the business, you're not thinking while you're talking to him about the house payment is due tomorrow morning. When I sell from a position of strength. I pick the products and services I represent or coach or consult on very carefully. And then I'm in a position where when I present the opportunity to you in an honest manner, I don't care if you buy or not. I'm good. So if you have the money, you probably will. My closing rate has been right at 86% on significant sales for as long as I knew how to keep track of closing ratios, probably 30, 40 years, 86%. So I'm one of those who Jim Rohn used to say, other people now get credit for the same, but I heard it first from Jim Rohn. Some will, some won't. Next. And so
I heard it. I delivered it as the 4 SWs. Some will, some won't. So what? Someone's waiting.
Okay, good. I'll add that to the story. I'll give it, and then I'll say, and then Wes said, someone's waiting. It gives you such a position of strength. I don't need to make any money today. I have a $2,800 a day goal, $2,739 actually, which is $1 million divided by 365. I'm not smart enough to remember the pennies, so I rounded it up to 2,800. But if I don't make it today, I'll make it tomorrow. And then the day will come where in one day, as a result of 10 days of work, but in one day I made over $14 million. And a friend of mine said, whoa, you don't have to do anything for 14 years. And I said, no, tomorrow morning I have to make $2,800.
Yep.
One of the advantages of being raised on a golf course is that what you did in the past means nothing.
Yep.
It's the ball at your feet right now, and what you do with that. It's the only shot in your career that makes any difference, the
That's
next
right.
shot. So comfort zones, adjust them. And if you're working with people, you have to help them. Be aware there's a comfort zone. Be aware it can be their upfall or their downfall, and work with them on that. We pulled a young man off a milk truck outside the Hotel Pontchartrain in Detroit, Michigan years ago. I was showing how you can recruit anybody, anywhere, anytime. He pulled up in his milk truck. I said, young man, I'll cut the story short. I talked him into parking his truck, promised him I would pay any parking tickets he got, took him into the hotel ballroom, surrounded by a few hundred people watching. He's in a chair, I'm in a chair, and hundreds of people watching. I gave him the presentation. He got in the business. And I'm quoting from memory, but I think he was making about $600 a month at the time. For 12 months from that day, he made $360,000. We changed his concept, his comfort zone, from almost $600 a month milkman to I can make as much as any of these other guys. Part of the presentation, I went around the room. So and so, tell them what you used to make. What did you used to do? What's your education? And he discovered that he had as much talent as anyone in that room. And some of them were making close to $1 million a year while he's making $600 a month. Mm-hmm. So we just changed that. We changed his comfort zone. I thought I coined it. Later, I found out it was in the Bible, but under a different context. The way I teach it is I am, not I will, I'm gonna, I'm so-and-so. I am rich now. I am making fill in the blank, $20,000 a month now. I am walking like a successful person. I'm dressing like a successful person, even if I only have one suit. My father said, get one, instead of going to Robert Hall and getting the closet full of cheap stuff for $200, go get one good suit and keep it clean and keep it such a way, get the kind of suit that nobody will remember what you had on tomorrow, except that you were well dressed. That leaves out red plaid sport coats and so on. So I armed myself to success. When I left the family business, as I like to call it, I never owned it, but as I left the family business and went off on my own, my first wife and I rented this little 2-room, not bedroom, 2-room apartment in downtown Atlanta, across the street from the Fox Theater. We looked good, but we had 2 rooms. We paid $75 a month for them. I can never forget walking in as a newly married couple. We'd already moved my half of the bachelor furniture into the apartment, walked in with her, looked around, and I remember thinking, what the hell am I doing here? This isn't my comfort zone. Within a few days of that, I answered the little ad in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, joined Holiday Magic Cosmetics, and I was off and running. It was comfort zoning. And I am rich. I am successful. I am hanging out with rich, successful people. So what the hell am I doing here? And it just flipped. My mind couldn't deal with staying there. I had to take action. If that doesn't come naturally to you, get to work on it. Change your comfort zone.
Yep. If people only knew like how prevalent the imposter syndrome is. You know, I've always been in the military, going to the Air Force Academy. From an early age, I was around congressmen and senators and, 4-star generals and blah, blah, blah. Now in business, I've helped a lot of big name people with their marketing, looked under the hood. And it's a mess most of the time. I mean, things are rarely as put together as you would think, and if people could just like be calm and look that prospect in the eye and ask the hard questions. And, you can flip the script pretty easily with a little preparation, ask a few hard questions, poke a little hole in their facade, get them to kind of lower their guard, get to the truth. But people they still are looking for shortcuts. I mean, in 1966 and 76 and 86, were people looking for sales shortcuts back then, just like they do now?
Of course. and always will be.
Yeah.
That's human nature. And by the way, Wes, as you know, there are no shortcuts, and I can testify to that because I have tried every single one that ever crossed my path, looking for the easy way. I am by nature physically lazy. A friend of mine and I were kidding one day. He's unable to walk without aid. He spends a lot of time in a special bed with a Zoom camera on him. You'd never know he was there, but he is. And I said, I would make a great invalid. And he said, why do you say that? And I said, well, I love to read. I love to watch the news. And I can run most of my business off of my phone, talking to people, emailing, whatever. And so on. So I said, I don't want to swap places with you, but it has some appeal. So I have to fight the tendency at all times to procrastinate. Not so much now, but in the early days, because I was around a bunch of hustlers when I first got into Holiday Magic. If an opportunity presents itself and there are 2 solutions, the dishonest one usually came to my mind first. So intellectually knowing that didn't pay, I had to fight off that tendency. I wanted to stay in bed till noon. I had to fight off that. You went to Air Force Academy. I went to Coast Guard boot camp in Cape May, New Jersey, because I got the letter greetings. And just so I go around trying to figure out where the best deal is. And I think I was at the Air Force or maybe the Navy. But anyway, they said, well, what are you looking for in being a smart aleck? I said, well, what I'd like is, let's talk about boot camp. I'd like to sleep till about noon, maybe play a round or 2 of golf at least a week, and so and so. And he said with disdain, well, what you want is the Coast Guard. And I said, does that count? The Coast Guard wasn't under the Defense Department at the time. It's under the Secretary of the Treasury. And I literally didn't know if it counted or not as a military branch. He said, well, yeah, if you don't have any pride. I said, well, I don't have any pride. Where is the recruiting office? And an hour later, I was in the Coast Guard. Then much to my chagrin, I discovered the Coast Guard boot camp was at the time the roughest of all of them, and it was 12 weeks, not 8 weeks.
Oh.
And then I didn't, in the dead of winter in Cape May, New Jersey. And then I thought, well, at least I'll get to float around on the boat after that, and got shipped out of there to the Cuban patrol. Back when that was tough duty, with picking up dead bodies and everything. So my plot to join the Coast Guard and have an easy time of it didn't work out, but that was my tendency. Let's find something easy to do. And I have to discipline myself against that now. Somebody asked me one day in a seminar, what are the 3 things that you learned from Dr. Hill that were most important? Well, I hate questions like that because I learned 3 a day, hundreds over the 2.5 years we worked together. But I shut my eyes and out came integrity in all things, focus, and take action. Those are probably looking back, probably the 3 of the biggest, if not the biggest things he taught me. And that focus one especially is one. You and I are on Zoom right now. I am concentrated on you fully, except to my left, there's the always on television monitor. And today it's on Fox News, and I just saw with my great lizard-like peripheral vision breaking news. I'm focused on you, and I'm hearing Dr. Hill's voice in my ear. Focus, Benjamin, focus. Because my tendency is to go, I wonder what the breaking news is. And then what's that shiny object? What's this shiny object? And how can I put it off till tomorrow? So discipline, for those of your viewers who are trying to figure out how to get their comfort zones set and their career underway or improved or whatever, personal discipline. It's a matter of grinding it out. I write everything down, and then I don't quit for the day or week or month or year until everything on the list is gone. If I didn't write everything down, Dr. Hill's the one who taught me to always have within arm's reach pads. I always have this one really nearby, and on any desk or place I sit, the big legal pad nearby. And we had a 3-day weekend. It might have been the 4th of July, not too long ago, 3-day weekend. And I didn't go to the office, but I had my ever-present memo pads everywhere I went. Monday, when I went around and started tearing off pages to bring them to the office, I had 71 fresh ideas, reminders, etc. 71. What are the odds of me remembering 71 things in a span of 3 days if I didn't write them down? None. Some of the ideas weren't very good. On Monday, they didn't look as good as they looked on Saturday. But of the ones that survived that cut, they were all done before the week was over. Personal discipline, because I know I am unfocused and lazy. It's the reason I hired my friends to mow lawns. I didn't want to mow lawns.
You didn't just type it into your iPhone back then?
No, and don't now either, for fear I'll lose the iPhone. The pad, anything I write on the pad stays where that pad is located, next to the computer screen, over at my real desk, next to the bed, in the bathroom, in the car, in my briefcase, wherever. And then every morning I gather up the notes.
So that brings up something. I mean, if my math is right, you're closing in on 80, right?
It'd be 80 in August.
Okay. How, and I see, I've been in the technology space for a long time. And I feel like deep down, I'm always pushing people to be more human. You know, I tell them I've got a program called Process Before Login, right? And we use paper and a whiteboard. I'm like, we're going to document your current and or ideal process before we start demoing, testing, trialing different software tools. Because people are always talking about, you know, taking a shortcut, right? And cutting corners. They think this next piece of software is going to make all the difference. What is your take on technology in sales and marketing? Is Is there too much emphasis on it? Can somebody still be very rudimentary in a technological sense and hit their sales goals?
Yes. The question that I usually get along those lines is, how much has selling changed since you got into selling? And
well, I always like the opposite. I like to know what stayed the same.
Well, which is the answer.
Two sides of the same
to
coin.
that question. Yeah. The answer is selling hasn't changed at all. People still want to know, whether it's speaking for their company or themselves, what's in it for me. And the salesperson always wants to sell, hopefully a quality product that's competitively priced, et cetera, but always wants to sell it. That's what the Yankee peddlers were doing 200 and some odd years ago. It's what the people in the silk trade were doing hundreds of years ago. Nothing's changed. But I always say the sheepdogs have gotten faster. And that's a good thing. Rounding them up, the marketing, getting in front of your people. I've given over 5,000 paid speeches and seminars to, I'm guessing, about 2.5 million people live, in the room with me. 2.5 million people, 5,000 times, not counting all the free ones at San Quentin and Lompoc and so on, and service organizations. I can, if you and I made a project out of it, I can talk to that many people via Zoom between, what's today, Wednesday, between now and Friday. Take my 55-year, whatever it is, career and double the number of people by Friday. Now, they won't all be the same quality of people, and the contacts won't be as firm, but the point is the sheep herding part of selling has increased. The sheepdogs, the electronics are faster. When you and the sheep, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but when the farmer, the shearer, and the sheep come in personal contact, nothing's changed. What's in it for me? Can I trust you? Since people buy from people they know, like, and trust, can I trust you? And 85% of all the problems I've found, Wes, in selling go away if you're selling a quality product or service that's competitively priced, doesn't have to be the cheapest, and you spend your time talking to qualified people. Qualified can be geographically, income, religion. There's a lot of different ways to qualify someone. But if you sell in that quality product competitively priced to the right people, there's really nothing much to selling except for personal discipline. And I'm a firm believer in scripting, script chunks, I like to call them. I don't go, hi, my name's Ben Gay, talk for 45 minutes and ask for your money through a scripted presentation. But anything I tell you about any element of the product or service, odds are I've said that thousands of times. I've polished it, I've worked on it. Why wouldn't I use what works? And people say, well, I'll never use a script. If you've been in selling over 30 days, you're on a script. The question is it a good script, well thought out, that's been tested and is getting results? You're on a script. Well, I can tell when somebody's on a script. Really? You ever been to the movies? Ever watched television?
It's all, I tell them life is it's all a script.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the question is, how good are you at delivering the script? The other 80 people, so what's the other 15%? Product knowledge, et cetera, and become a person of class, quality, and substance with the ability to tastefully project that you are. Because when I'm selling something, Wes, what I always sell, and I'm confident you would say the same thing with your name, I always sell Ben Gay. First, you can trust me, you can like me, I'm a funny guy, I'm nice, I relate, I patted your dog, I said your secretary was so sharp, and et cetera, and so on. And then when we get down to the product, I've written 24 books. Friends of mine tell me it's more than that, but at least 24 books I could prove, most of them on selling, all of them on living successfully, and so on. Out of all that, the hundreds of closes I've used, I use one. I use the concept of sales infiltration. I get inside their defensive lines. I become their friend, their buddy, their trusted advisor. I sell Ben Gay. And then when we're done, my magic close is, Wes, based on what we've discussed, here's what I suggest we do. Fill in the blank. Fair enough? And close to 86% say yes, then. And then those who don't, it smokes out another objection that we didn't hit on. I say, here's what's bothering me. Fantastic. Thank you for telling me. Da, 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 da. So here's what I now suggest we do. Fair enough. And that takes me right up to 86%. I'm not talking about taking a book order over the phone. I'm talking about substantial sales. 86%, because I follow a rather simple system. When I go on stage to teach selling for a day, one of my greatest concerns is that someone will figure out that I could have explained my success anyway in about half an hour.
Well, yes, to another expert, right? Like in jiu-jitsu, my professor, my instructor, he could teach all of jiu-jitsu in 30 minutes. But I mean, he would move so fast.
Yeah.
And there's a difference. There's a difference if I grab your collar by the throat versus by your chest. Or do I untuck it out of your belt and grab it low? And every one of those nuances matter. Mm-hmm. And so that's what takes the rest of the day and then 10 years to get your black belt.
Absolutely. Yeah, the old thing, you charge me $50,000 to hit the machine with a hammer.
Yeah.
No, you're paying for the 20 years it took me to figure out where to hit the machine with a hammer.
I think it's $50,012. It was $12 to swing the hammer. It was $50,000 to know where to hit.
Right. Precisely. Well, you've got good old common Southern sense, and that is probably another advantage I had. I was raised in the South.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, it has worked for me, and especially being in technology, and I've sold all over the country. And I'll play the old country boy, aw shucks, and they'll just think they're talking over my head, and they don't realize they're just giving me the keys of the kingdom.
Let me tell you a quick Jimmy Rucker story that only a good old Southern boy could get away with. Jimmy Rucker, Sales Infiltration, which is the best thing I've ever written. It's a section in the Closers Part 2, was written with Jimmy Rucker in mind. We're at the Georgian Terrace Hotel, right across the corner from where I lived at the time, doing an opportunity meeting. And this Rucker, multi-level marketing, Rucker draws the circles. And he says, so which position best suits your needs? And the guy picked the top position, $5,000, $50,000 today's money, to be a master distributor. And he said, I'm in. That's what I want to do. And he said, I didn't bring my checkbook with me tonight. Well, this is back in the days when you always had your checkbook before Diners Club changed the world with credit cards and so on. And he said, I didn't bring my checkbook, but put me down for that. And Rucker stands up, heavy Southern accent, leans across the table, picks up the guy's lapel, reaches inside his coat pocket and says, here it is. Look, I found it. Now, only a Southerner could get away with that, and only a good Southerner. But the guy laughed. He said, you're right. I didn't realize I had it on me. And Rucker opened it up to the first blank check, and he wrote a check for $5,000.
So
that's a good old Southern boy. And the guy knew him, liked him, and trusted him.
I was selling trailers. It was before I got my own store, and we all had our own offices. And at the time, I only had 2 kids, but I had a picture, right, on the credenza behind me. So like right here, right? So These people, they were driving a hard bargain. And my manager, we're still friends to this day. We talk every day on Facebook. And he overheard it. They're talking, they're trying to drive this hard bargain. And we were paid on gross margin. And we had single wides, double wides, triple wides, and we had certain percentages on each of those. And if we went below that, we got a huge hit on our commission. right? And so I didn't even think about it. I just leaned back and I grabbed the family picture and I said, I'd be happy to work with you on this pricing, but I just, I'm paid on commission. So I just, let me know which of these people in this picture won't be getting dinner tonight.
Whoa. Love it.
And these are people. So sometimes, right? Sometimes somebody, they're strapped for cash. That is truly the best they can do. And I'll make that deal and go to the next. But these are people they were buying they were wealthy. It was like a hunting cabin, they were throwing up on their land, their hunt on their deer lease. And they were driving a hard bargain just because they could. And it just shut them right down, man. They're like, all right, we did the deal.
Zig's brother, Judge Ziglar, wrote a great book. Timid salespeople have skinny kids.
Yes.
Your story is the personification of that.
Yes, that's awesome. Oh man, well, we could talk forever. But I know you've got to run. I hope I've hidden my despair. All 6 of the Schaefer women are shopping for wedding dresses as we speak. Fortunately, they're not all 6 getting married. One's getting married, but they're all 6 are shopping. So
bridesmaids. And
I've been distracted too. So I hope it didn't come through.
didn't come through at all. But if it had, you have my sympathy. We have 4 boys, 3 living, but 4 boys. So I've never had to go through that. And Gigi's always laughing at me. She said, "You would be flat broke if we had had daughters."
Oh my gosh.
Because our nieces wrapped me around their finger. We went out for something at Walmart one day, like a hammer. I don't know what it was, when they were littler. And we came back. Every girl had a new hat. Every girl had a new purse. And I went by myself. That's another thing you learn in raising girls that you probably know. Don't go out without the wife.
Yeah.
She knows how to shut that stuff down.
She does. That's so true.
He said, "Why'd they get hats?" I said, "Because they said they didn't have any hats." Well, true. And they probably haven't worn them since the day I bought them. But
oh man, that's so funny. That's so true. Yeah, within 72 hours over Christmas, my second son got engaged and my first daughter got engaged.
Wow. Now, being from the South, I have to ask you this, not to each other.
Well, I don't think so. That's that old joke. That, Mama, if we get divorced, will he still be my brother? It's selling trailers. The joke was always, what does a tornado and a divorce in Alabama have in common?
What?
Somebody's going to lose a trailer.
I love that.
Oh man.
What's a Tennessee? If a Tennessee cheerleader marries a pig, I say Tennessee because I'm a Georgia fan, Georgia Tech fan. I don't even know where the University of Tennessee is, but if a Tennessee cheerleader marries a pig, Louis Grizzard used to tell this story. What comes of it? And Louis said, "Nothing. There's some things a pig just won't do."
Oh, dang. Oh, well, how did Tennessee Volunteers pick the color of their uniform?
How is who?
How did the Tennessee Volunteers pick their color?
How?
Because they can go right from work with their work vest right to the game, go right from the game out to the deer lease, so never have to change clothes.
Orange travels well.
Man, don't get me started.
Well, Wes, you are a pleasure and a joy, and if you want me to come back sometime, you let me know. Like you said, we could go on for quite some time.
We're going to have to definitely, and I will in the post-production. I'll link out to your website and your books. You've got me that link, so I'll mention that in the post-production. But it was awesome. I was glad I met Brian, and Brian introduced me to you. So this was the gift that keeps on giving.
He's a good guy. I've never met him, but he's
Yeah,
a good,
well, I
good
met
guy.
digitally.
Yeah. You let me know anytime I can be of service. I'd be happy to. You're a joy to talk to. I feel like I'm back home.
Well, thank you, sir. It's been fantastic. You have a great day.
Bye.
All right. So as you can tell, that was part one. I just want to leave everything in there in its entirety, just see how it transpired, how we ended things. And then before we got off the call, I said, hey, let's book another. And we did. So scheduled him the very next week. And we just kind of picked up where we left off. I'm going to merge that in right away. And so you can just see, we literally just kept on going. And I could have kept going. Talking with somebody with this kind of experience, who was mentored and supervised, if you will, or at least work with other greats like Zig Ziglar, but mentored by Napoleon Hill, and think through there's information, and we kind of talked about it in this first part. Some people are kind of disparaging Napoleon Hill. Maybe he didn't talk to all those people. Maybe he died bankrupt. I don't know, but he certainly had interactions with the movers and the shakers of the day. He had access to these people and the information that he got and passed on, and now in his books, which I've read personally, to Ben, which Ben is now sharing with us. There's value there. So I hope you see that. I hope you understand the value of this, that the information you can use to grow your sales. Okay. I'm linking to his books. He sells them through a reseller on eBay, which is interesting, but you can get, and they're fairly priced. They're not, ripping you off. So get you those and dig into them. Okay. But, keep listening. This next part, like I said, we just pick up where we left off, and it's just as good as the first part. Welcome back, Ben Gay the third. I feel like we were just talking.
We were.
In eight and a half years, 530. Well, I've published 538. I've conducted 543 because I'm ahead by a few. So, and I've had several guests back, but usually after a year or two. This is the first time I'm having you back to back. So this is awesome.
I'm honored.
We were talking about a lot of good things. Jimmy Rucker, as I was saying before we hit record, talking a little bit about Judge Ziglar. And, I didn't even realize this when you had told me in the first part of this, you had walked in on the same exact day as Zig Ziglar and then became his boss. I was like, what the what?
That was how Zig reacted to it.
Oh my gosh. So
when we were in a group somewhere and he was within earshot, they'd say, how do you know Zig Ziglar? And I said, well, he worked for me. And I would say it just loud enough where he'd hear it, and his head would always twitch. He didn't like the fact that the kid, I was 18 years younger than Zig, that the kid had somehow gotten ahead of him.
That's funny. I want to go through more of those stories, but I want to make sure we relate them, to our listeners to today, right? The new year is here, along with, I lose count, 387th variant of some virus. I mean, who knows, right?
I'm getting ready to get my 14th booster.
Inflation though, 7%. It's like, good grief. All right. How do we sell ourselves out of worrying about this? Because I heard somebody say, like, if you have your house in order, you don't have to worry about what the White House is doing.
I agree.
Right. And we talked a little bit about, I'd ask you, like, what hasn't changed in sales over all of these years? And so obviously social media is huge, and the internet and mobile and video. And none of that was around when you were cutting your teeth, but what are some of the things that, you could reiterate or elaborate on that haven't changed, that people should still continue doing in 2022 and beyond to have a 60 or 70 year sales career like you?
Well, understand that at the fundamental level, we talked about this last time, one-on-one, whether by computer, Zoom, telephone, face-to-face, whatever, one-on-one, nothing's changed. They still want to know what's in it for me. And whether they're one of 10,000 people getting an email blast or whatever, as they're reading it, they're saying, what's in it for me? And one difference is you face-to-face in the old days, get in your car and go see them. A lot of that still goes on, of course. But if you messed up in that situation, you had time to get out of it. With the internet now, and I'm guilty of it, I'll get up in the morning, I usually have 200 or 300 emails. So as I click down through them with one hand on the shift, but one finger on the shift button, and clicking down. So when I get about 10 highlighted in blue, I can hit delete and get rid of all of them. You got to get me in the first 2, 3, 4 words. People say, well, that's different, Not really. I've been saying for years that most sales are made or lost in the first 10 to 15 seconds. Made, lost, or heavily influenced in the first 10 to 15 seconds. So now it's 4 seconds or 2 seconds or whatever. That's not really that big a difference. So speed of capturing attention is certainly important. That's the bad news. The good news is you can talk to 20,000 people in a day with a message, cull them out, and wind up actually one-on-one via text or voice or whatever with 10 or 15 or 20 that are really worth spending some time with. In my day, in the early days, I discovered if it was a good call or a bad call after I drove 100 miles to get there. I once drove to Fort Valley, Georgia, where they make the Bluebird Wander Lodges. And I was a manufacturer's rep selling a lot of things. And among them was plastic dishware, dish drainers, dish trays, bowls, so on, everything you can think of, perhaps in the Rubbermaid line, for instance, I sold. Well, I saw some orders coming through from Fort Valley, Georgia, Bluebird Wander Lodge. I didn't know what a Bluebird Wander Lodge was, but I figured, well, if they're buying them without any help, and I haven't called on them, I have an exclusive in the southeastern United States. Imagine what they would buy if I called on them in person. So I jumped in my car and drove to Fort Valley, Georgia from Atlanta. I don't remember how long it was, but it wasn't around the block. It was a drive to the point I checked into the local Howard Johnson's motel. Excuse me. And the lady, when I called to say, I'm in town, said, I don't think this is really worth your trouble. I said, well, they're already buying it. And I'm picturing the Wander Lodge. And I mean, they produce, but each one coming with a full contingent of dish racks and this and that and so on. As it turned out, the guy he only saw salespeople on Wednesdays. This was a Tuesday, I guess. Fortunately, it was a day or two early, not one day late, and you have to wait a week. But he only saw salespeople on Wednesdays. Today, I would know that long before I even made a phone call. So there's one example. And then the second example was what they weren't using. Our United Plastics was the company name. They weren't using the United Plastics dish pans for what I thought. It wasn't the camel's nose under the tent for getting in the kitchen. They were taking a dish pan and putting it up under the belly of the Wander Lodge to cover the drain, the toilet drain and so on, out of the van while it was on the way to its destination. When it got to its destination, I guess somebody took off the dish pan, threw it in the trash, because by then it had 4 or 5 holes drilled in the edge. So my dream of filling up the kitchen with the rest of the line dissipated when I discovered they were buying all they needed. And and then I found out they only produced in good times about 10 a week. So I had the opportunity to sell them. They were already buying them 10 dishpans a week. And the dishpans cost, I'm quoting from memory, I think cost them 33 cents each. Mm. So I drove to Fort Valley, Georgia, checked into a Howard Johnson's, wasted the better part of 2 days to not make a new sale, but to reinforce a sale for 10 33-cent dishpans a week. None of that would have happened with the internet. And probably none of it would have happened if I'd been bright enough to get on the phone and do a little qualifying. That's changed.
But I mean, if they're a long-term customer, I mean, that's 500 pans a year.
There's what I'm not really good at math. There's about $200 a year gross right there. And then I make 5% of that probably. So it was not, let's say that I retired from being a manufacturer's rep before I got back my hotel fee.
Well, I remember the story, I forget the name of the movie, with Michael Keaton playing Ray Kroc.
I didn't see it. I know what you're talking about, but I didn't see it.
But he had a similar thing. He checks into the office, they have him like at a drive up, kind of like a Sonic, back in the day, right? Pull up, wait for your burger. And he has some huge order from, San Bernardino, California. And he never spoke to them. They had ordered like 5 of those shake milk makers, whatever.
Shake maker, yeah.
Yeah, malt maker. He's like, what? So same concept, right? I imagine how many I can sell them, if I go meet him, right? Because he was struggling to sell 1. These guys ordered 5 just on a whim. And he went to see him, and the rest is history, right? But it was a same kind of concept, but I think it worked out better for him.
Yeah, long haul. But he wasn't concerned. Once he saw the only unit they had, I suspect he wasn't quite as enthralled with the concept. But there's a good example of taking something bad and turning it into something good. I wish I had a happy ending to the Bluebird Wander Lodge story, but I really didn't. I met a very nice gentleman, wasted the better part of 2 days, and went back to Atlanta.
You know what, though? Some things still haven't changed. It's been a while. Back in like 2007, I was on a retainer for almost a year with Dell. They were deploying Salesforce.com, and they were doing some new sales training methodology with the new CRM. And I was leading these 2-day sales sessions, and classrooms, about 30 sales reps. And I got to know these guys pretty well. And we're at a hotel, and I go out to dinner, and I come back, and this group one of the classes I was teaching was at the bar. Oh, come on over. And it's late enough that they were pretty lit, and one of the guys, though, this moment of clarity, right? Because during the session, I was telling them, so look, this is my own money. When I go call on a prospect, I don't care if it's across the country or across the town. I'm paying money to put the gas in the car. It's my time away from doing something else to go, like, I'm going to disqualify this prospect hard before I go spend time on them. And this guy was like, yeah, I've gotten on planes and flown across the country and on deals that weren't deals, because it wasn't his money, right? Big corporation, multi-billion dollars. They just expected you to put some FaceTime in front of prospects. I'm like, you don't have to do that to sell. We got to ask better questions. Were you brought up that way? Was that always a thing? Like I've always said, whoever's asking the questions is in control of the conversation.
As J. Douglas said, would you say whoever speaks last wins? There's lots of situations where I found that wasn't true, but it's a good guidance thing. No, I wouldn't have driven to Fort Valley, Georgia, if I had known about qualifying people. I came up in a situation where, my dad when I was in the food brokerage business, my dad had clients and food companies, Stofers and people like that. And we had people to call on. The grocery store changed, and the individual grocery store chain. So I didn't have to do any qualifying. That had all been established long before I got there. It was after I got out in the field loose by myself that I discovered it was in Fort Valley, Georgia. I mean, this is years ago, and I still have nightmares about. I can still hear the lady's voice saying, Ben, I don't think this trip is worthwhile. And I'm thinking, you don't know how much stuff I have to sell them. Turned out she did know, and she was already buying it. Had one dishpan per very expensive motorhome.
Mm-hmm.
So the qualify. I learned some lessons earlier in life that didn't stick. When I worked at Macy's, a guy came up the escalator. I was working in sporting goods and the camera department. And I looked at him, and another guy came in a suit the other direction. The guy that came up the escalator was in farm clothes, overalls, traces of dirt on him. He didn't get dressed to go to downtown Atlanta. And the other guy in a suit. And I knew that my associate was coming back from break or lunch or something any minute. So I decided I would decide which one to take. And I took the guy in the suit. And about an hour later, he spent, I'm making up numbers, $12 on some cardboard shoulder pads for his son. And when I sent the sales slip up through the pneumatic tube to the credit department, it came back declined. He couldn't even get the $14. Meanwhile, the guy who looked like he just fell off a truck, and probably did, encountered my friend. His name was Hart Bro. I will always remember the name because I'll try not to forget the lesson. He said, "How can I help you, sir?" And he said, "Well, I would like this and this." And I started pointing at the camera equipment like he'd manufactured it. "I want this and this and this." And in the period of 10 minutes, if that, he spent $3,500, which today is about $35,000. And then pulled out cash from his overalls and paid for it in cash and left. And I'm standing there with a decline slip in my hand for $14 worth of helmets and shoulder pads or whatever. And so that was not qualifying so much as don't prejudge. Mm-hmm. But in the process of not prejudging him, I would have qualified him if only by accident. So there's just so many. I happened to go in to buy my first brand new Cadillac in very casual clothes one day, and no one would make eye contact with me. They were all busy all of a sudden. And Jimmy Rucker and I were starting to make some serious money. Hence, we had just decided to buy this Cadillac. And nobody paid any attention. Finally, we got the car and happy ending and so on. But what they didn't realize was from that dealership and a Lincoln dealership in Marin County, California, over the next 2-3 years, I bought and or leased over 300 luxury cars. If someone had treated me well at the first place in Atlanta, that person would have gotten all that business. And they didn't. And then went on to buy another. I figure roughly I've bought or leased over 600 luxury cars, Rolls Royces and Lincolns and Cadillacs, Stutz Bearcats, to give away as prizes. And I've had a few nice cars myself over the years. But I think back to the people who wouldn't make eye contact with me at the first dealership. They could have had at least 300 sales. If they'd really been good, even when I went to California, I would have ordered from them. So they could have had 600, but they looked at the kid, casually dressed. I was 23 years old, probably had a flat top and traces of acne, and they decided I wasn't worth their time. You never know. Talk to them, ask questions, listen, become a dynamic listener. They'll give you information that they didn't intend to give you.
Yeah.
If you listen.
That's so funny. I was selling mobile homes in Mobile, Alabama. This was probably early 99. And we had the very scientific, very highly advanced, technologically savvy up system.
Yeah.
Right. So the first guy that walked in the showroom and unlocked, put his name up first. So
Right.
as the prospects came in, Wes, you're up. Right. So one of the other guys was up and he looked out and there was a guy in overalls and a ball cap. And I remember this guy's name was Johnny. He said, you can have him. Johnny lived in the trailer park behind us, and Johnny had problems paying the rent. I'm like, hey, I'll take this guy. You know, I got a wife, 2 kids. Like I'm selling. And this guy installed new septic tanks. So he didn't service the dirty ones. When somebody bought a new trailer, built a new house, he installed the septic tank. And he had an old truck. He had a flatbed. He had a backhoe. You know, his other car was a Cadillac. His wife, and he raised thoroughbred horses as their hobby. Because in Mobile, Alabama in 1999, if you could work a backhoe, you can make a whole lot of money. And this guy made a whole lot of money. And he wasn't buying a trailer. He was looking to grow his own business. So we ended up partnering, right? Because when somebody would buy the trailer, and they put it on land, you know, anybody does septic tanks? Yep, I got a guy. So he'd give me finder's fees, but then he'd send his people. Hey, I'm looking to buy a trailer. Go see Wes. Easy sale, right? Because my buddy vouched for me. Piece of cake. The other guys didn't want him, you know, because he didn't look like he had money. Like, oh my gosh.
That may have been the guy that bought all the cameras that day. Maybe he was from Mobile.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we're so judgmental, and we see what we want to see, we hear what we want to hear. It's just crazy. How do we avoid that? How did you avoid that? Did that lesson stick, and did you stop prejudging people?
Yeah, I have to fight it to this day, but I've discovered that if I spend some time with somebody and talk to them and so on, I'm qualifying at that point. And it's possible that they're not qualified, but I also remember the young boy with a flat top and acne who wasn't qualified to get anything at the beginning, a car at the beginning of 1965. In the mid 1965s, he was buying a Cadillac, and by 18 months later, he was buying them. But my first purchase for some cars that in a contest was 48 Lincoln Continentals with a phone call. I'd made a friend, I trusted him, and he sold me the Lincoln I was driving at the time. So I picked up the phone. His nickname was Herc. It was a Greek name I never could pronounce. But I called Herc and I said, Herc, well, we've given away some cars. I'm going to need your help. He said, yeah, I saw that. How many you need? And I said, 48. He said, 48 what? I said, 48 Lincoln Continentals, black, 4 doors. Okay, I think we can handle that. Because he treated me with respect from day one. So I just circled back around. He could have brushed me off like they did at the Cadillac dealership in Atlanta. And I'd been on many car lots before, not for the Cadillac, but just, you know, dreaming and hoping and so on. If somebody had taken some time with a young, skinny kid, they would have sold a ton of cars, but nobody did. Now, how long? I understand people say, well, I don't want to spend all day and then discover he doesn't have any money. It doesn't take me all day to find out if you have any money. I'm a sales infiltrator. You'll either tell me voluntarily or I'll ask you right up front, because I tell my prospects I operate on a straight basis. I'll be straight with you. You be straight with me. Fair enough? Fair enough. Okay. A cute story I haven't thought of in a long time. Gigi is who I refer to all the time, is my wife. Her father was a big deal in this little town of Placerville, elected county supervisor, owned an insurance company, owned a real estate company, and so on, and was quite successful. He had a salesman who was his number one salesman. And if Gigi were around in the office, I don't think she is. She would have heard my voice if she was. Whenever somebody would walk in, her dad would sort of drop his head and think, oh, here it comes. Jim was his first name. I remember that. Jim would offer the kids Cokes with the parents' permission, give them some snacks, try and get them calmed down. We live in one of those towns on the way to Lake Tahoe. So you pull in, oh, this would be a nice little place to live. And you get some inexperienced salesmen to go out and drive you all over the county, all over the town and all over the county. And just because you're dreaming. And then you say, well, we'll get back to you. And they rarely do. Sometimes they do, but rarely do. Jim would do the warm-up stuff, then sit down, I can picture it, put his cowboy boots up on the desktop and say, now here was his quote, started every sales presentation. Now that we've passed the pleasantries of the day, tell me, do you have any money? And Joe Ronzoni, Gigi's dad, would drop his head and go, oh my God. But he was overlooking the fact that Jim was his number one salesman every month, every year, without exception, that they worked together. He didn't waste any time out on these mythical tours. They call it looking for the four corners. The lot, 5 acre, whatever. Everybody always wants to see the corners where the stakes are. He spent no time looking for the four corners because he first became their friend, quickly earned as much trust as you can in 10 minutes, and then said, tell me, do you have any money? And
so how was that received? I mean, obviously he's number one. It must have been okay. Yeah. But even today, I mean, in the modern society, let's be direct, let's be transparent. I'm going to be authentic. Can I just speak my mind? Right? All this crap that everybody says today, and they're everybody's more sensitive and woke and whatever but I digress. But I mean, if we're talking 40, 50 years ago, I mean, wouldn't that be seen as rude?
Not if you frame it right. People will answer any question you ask if first you get permission to ask questions. That's part in the closers part 2, give a cheap little plug. In the closers part 2, probably I've written 24 books. This is probably my favorite, although the closers part 1 far outsold every other book in the sales industry, 10.5 million copies when we quit counting 25 years ago. But in this book, in the last chapter, page 257, is a chapter called Sales Infiltration. And that's where you stop going to war, team A, the salesperson, against team B, the customer, and you form team C that you each have a 50% interest in. One person has the money, the other person has the knowledge and the information. And you make a fair exchange. And the setup for that is to tell them right up front. I say it's covered in the book, but I even say, when we get through this presentation, I'm going to ask you to make a decision. And all I ask is that you don't tell me you have to check with your brother-in-law in Cleveland, who's an accountant, because A, you don't have, and I'm smiling, A, you don't have a brother-in-law. B, if you did, he wouldn't live in Cleveland. And you don't know any accountants. So if we get to the end, don't run that by me. Say instead, I don't have the money. I'm not interested. I don't like you. I don't really care how you phrase it. Maybes, in selling, Wes, as you know,
kill you.
Maybes will kill you. I would much rather get a hard no than a soft, sweet maybe.
Yeah.
If I've missed something, let me know. Tell me right up front. So to answer your question with Jim, no, from what I have heard, Joe always dropped his head in anticipation of somebody exploding. They never did, because first he became their friend. And people buy from people they know, like, and trust. But you can establish know, like, and trust to a degree in 5 to 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I'm quick to make a friend. Gigi says, when we go in restaurants, I wonder who we're going to meet today. And I said, well, whoever's sitting at the next table to start with. So, and then whoever. Yeah.
Have you heard of David Sandler in the sales?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I almost bought his company, or we almost merged. We were deep in talks, and he died on me.
Yeah, like 96 or so, somewhere in there.
Roughly, yeah.
I wonder if he must have gotten some of his stuff from you.
Well, it's possible. I don't, and vice versa, maybe. But I remember when we were negotiating, for lack of a better word, we weren't down with lawyers and all yet. We were just talking about how much we liked each other and how much fun it would be to work together, and that we agreed on stuff. So it was sort of a natural blend. I was either going to buy him out, or we were going to merge, or something. It was in the early stages of negotiation. Yeah, but he had, pardon me, I'm very sorry, I've got smoke in the air today. He struck me as the type of guy who was a natural sales infiltrator.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned Jimmy Rucker a couple of times. Jimmy Rucker was my running buddy in high school, and the brief period of time I spent in college, 3 weeks. And he worked for my father and was in the room when I answered the ad, and we went to meet a guy named Bill Dempsey, who had run the ad. And in all of Atlanta, whatever the population was then, probably nudging 1 million, millions of people by secondhand readership could have seen the ad. Little bitty one ad. If you know anything about marketing plans, want to make more money, dial this number. 3 of us answered, Jimmy and me and Zig Ziglar. And Zig was a sales infiltrator, stand-up comedian.
Mm-hmm.
Rucker was a true sales infiltrator. I hadn't coined the term yet, but when I was writing sales infiltration in longhand on the legal pad, Dr. Hill taught me to always have it with me. Rucker was who I was thinking about. He was just a natural sales infiltrator. I don't, stop me if I've told you this, because I don't want your audience to have to listen to it twice. Did I tell you about the time the guy said to Rucker he didn't bring his checkbook?
Oh, yeah, he reached in. Oh, you got it right there.
Yeah, Rucker reached into his coat pocket.
Yep.
And extracted the thing.
Awesome.
Well, people say, oh, you couldn't do that today. You shouldn't have done it then. But Rucker was a sales infiltrator, capital S, capital I.
Mm-hmm.
He could get away with anything because
mm-hmm.
he laid the groundwork in minutes, hours, days, weeks, years, months, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He was a sales infiltrator personified.
Well, the reason I bring up Sandler is my sales mentor was a Sandler franchise owner, and then went out on his own. And I had never heard of Sandler. And years later, I did, and saw some of the overlap. But I have my own URL called thesalesagenda.com, and it say you got to have an agenda. You got to set an agenda up front. To let the prospect know how things are going to go. Let them know this is not going to be a dog and pony show. This is not going to be a song and dance for their pleasure and entertainment where they go home and think it over and blow you off. But you take away that think it over from the beginning.
Yep.
And it changed my life. You know, it's like, hey, hearing no early, that's a win. You know, first 5 minutes after first meet, I don't have to chase you for 5 weeks or 5 months and blow up my pipeline because of this off maybe. Tell me no, so I know I got to go hustle and find another prospect, but don't string me along. And I mean, it just changed my life.
When somebody would come up with one of those after they pledged not to, I always say, you said you wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
You know, tell me the truth. Is that, are you trying to avoid no because it sounds impolite? I've heard no thousands of times. Won't bother me in the least.
I tell them, if you feel encouraged, motivated, compelled to tell me I want to think it over, is it okay if I just take that as a no? And you just don't want to hurt my feelings? I'm going to take that as a no. Okay. So I'm going to let you off the hook. It just changes the dynamics.
Yep. It's called honesty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Listen and be honest and cut to it.
Yeah.
There have been many sales I've made and many sales I've lost when I realized this probably isn't going where I want it to go. So let's get an answer now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just stop mid-sentence.
Yeah.
And say, before I waste any more of your time or my time, I have a feeling I'm not meeting your needs or explaining them properly or whatever. Tell me, are we going to do business together or not?
Mm-hmm.
And if they say no, not a problem. If they say yes, is there anything else you need to know
Mm-hmm.
to feel comfortable with your decision? And they will it's fair enough is something I coined in sales infiltration. I follow almost any question with fair enough, because fair enough is hard to say no to. And if they say yes, you got a deal. But what it really does that's of advantage to salespeople who use it is it smokes out the real problem. Say fair enough? No. Well, what did I miss? Well, and now they'll tell you the objection that they've had all along that they weren't going to tell you, or didn't want to tell you, or didn't want. I don't like saying no to a salesperson. I'll spend an extra 5 or 10 minutes doing the moonwalk out of a sales presentation because I don't want to say, no, you've wasted your time. I don't like you, or I don't like your product, or worse, I don't like either one of you. So I understand the reluctance on their part. Help them. If you have answered the question, what's in it for me, satisfactorily, they're going to buy anyway. So get with it. Go to it. Ask for it.
Would you say buyers are more defensive or hostile than 30, 40, 50 years ago? Are they the same, and salespeople just haven't evolved to handle them? Like, has anything changed in that realm?
Not really. Here's one difference that really has changed. I find it to be a time saver. The customer now knows about as much, in many cases, not always, but the customer now knows about as much about your product as you do. Unless you've just invented the brand new, whatchamacallit, voodoo dust rag or something, and it hasn't been announced yet, he or she already knows about as much as you do, and roughly what they can get it for. And sometimes they know what it costs. We were at the skin doctor yesterday. I hope it doesn't show, but I got a couple little spots sprayed with the freezing stuff. And as they were spraying me, I thought, I'm on with Wes tomorrow. That's too. I was glad I don't have big, huge patches or something on me. But we're sitting out in the waiting room, and he had a cabinet full of stuff that I didn't really study it, but it was skin stuff because they're skin doctors. And Gigi said, look at that. And it was a bottle about that big, like a big vitamin pill bottle. And she'd been looking at it. And I said, okay. And she said, do you know what they're asking? I said, no, I don't even know what it is, but I know what it costs. I've been in and around the vitamin cosmetic business for years. And she says, well, what does it cost? And I said, cap, bottle, jar, label, and contents can't be more than $5. Can't be. I ran a cosmetic line. This is years ago, so you'd have to adjust it for inflation, where if the cap, bottle, label, and contents cost more than $1, I wouldn't even consider adding it to the line. $1. So we're now looking at this thing. She said, would it surprise you to know that's $210? I think it was over $200. I said, wouldn't surprise me, but I could never buy it unless it cured cancer and I was dying of cancer. I can't. She said, why not? You don't know anything about the product. I said, I know what it costs. I promise you, Wes, if I felt I had to prove the point, I'd go buy a bottle and have it analyzed and so on. Their $200 jar could not have cost the manufacturer more than $5. Probably cost the doctor 150% markup. Double markup is about common.
Well,
the wholesaler 50% of that, but it nets down to $4 or $5 a jar. Yeah. I know I'm that customer. If you're selling vitamins you don't want to talk to, because I know too much.
Mm-hmm.
short of that, customers haven't really changed. They want to know what's in it for me, have it explained to them properly, buy from someone they know, like, and trust. Doesn't have to be a childhood friend. Could have been 10 minutes of knowing, liking, and trusting. What's in it for me, and be done. But do know that nowadays, when you're saying the widget does this, they know whether it does that or not. They've already read the Yelp review, the Google review, the whatever review.
Yeah, I'm thinking about, like, who was it, Jim? Do you have any money?
Yeah.
Right. I teach something very similar, but a little softer with retail clients, because they always walk up to you. Hi, how are you? How can I help? I'm just looking, and everybody, salespeople want to fight. I don't want to say a script, right? But you're following a script, and you're opening with a bad line, and you're getting a line that shuts you down. And I'm like, one simple thing, just change it and say, hi, what brings you in today? Okay. And maybe, it's a furniture store, and you're like, hey, I just dropped my kids off at karate across the street, and I wanted to get out of the heat, and the place is crowded. No sweat. We got the game on in the back, got free water and coffee. Enjoy yourself. 30 seconds. I'm on to the next prospect.
And here's my card. If
anything changes,
or something you like, you call me.
Yeah. But most prospects, they'd be so thrilled they weren't squeezed. They'd be like, what's your name? They'll remember me, right? Or if it's, hey, I'm coming in to look at a bedroom suite for yourself or for someone else.
Excellent.
Right? I'm just quickly narrowing it. As a matter of fact, my son is getting married, and we're looking this to be a wedding gift. Fantastic. Do you know exactly what they want, or are you just trying to get some ideas? Because this could be dangerous, right? Because they're going to buy some crap the son doesn't want, but a few little questions, you narrow this down, and it's all a script, but it's honest. What brings you in today? Is this for you or for someone else? You're looking to get it now, or is this sometime in the future? Well, we're building a house. Yeah, it's going to be ready not until the winter. Okay. So now I know, but just a few simple little questions.
Absolutely.
Hey, how are you? How can I help? Like, you can get out of my face. You can bring me some coffee, then get out of my face. Because I got my Amazon app. I'm going to scan all your barcodes, and I'm going to buy this stuff at half off. Ugh. Which they do. But if you treat them right, they'll spend the money with you because they feel obligated because you helped them.
The price thing, if they check somewhere else and then with you and you're a little higher, it depends on the business. And in some businesses, negotiation is expected. Car business comes to mind. Not currently, as we're recording this. Used car prices are up 30%. You can't get a new car. So that's a little different.
I saw 39. I said it was 43% last year and 39% in one of the articles I read.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, that's going to change. And some of the people, I used to have a friend, she's passed away, Jan Dowen, in the real estate business, and she rented an office in the same building I started the call center industry in. And she was there in boom times, when people were driving up from down the hill on the way to Tahoe and drop in and buy 2 or 3 houses, one to live in, one to rent, and so on. She was right in the midst of it and busy. And then the boom times would end. I've lived here almost 50 years now. The boom times would end, and all those people who were retired Air Force colonels who decided to sell real estate because their wife wanted them out of the house, they all thinned out, and Jan's still sitting there, busy, and so on. And that's some of the people in the automobile business are about to discover that it was too easy for a while, and now it's too hard. The too hard will thin them out. Mm-hmm. And the ones who were here only in the good times go away when things get tough. But in every dealership, I promise you, there's at least one, maybe it's depending on the size of the dealership, 2, 3, 4, 5, who've been there through all the waves, because they're likable, they're trustworthy, they know what they're doing, they're working their system. You alluded earlier to, what do you do in bad times or good times or what have you. I work my system. I don't care who's the president. I started the call center industry and built the world's largest answering service, order taking service, call center in the world in the Carter administration. We started in 1976 with Jimmy Carter, who promptly tanked the economy. If you're a Carter fan, I'm sorry, but it's historical. He tanked the economy. Interest rates, I don't know, 18% or whatever. Nobody had a credit card that had any value to it and so on. And we built the business anyway. And then when the boom times came, it really exploded. All I can do is be Ben Gay and sell what Ben Gay sells. And there's nothing I can do about whether I like or dislike or don't trust or don't like the economics or whatever of the current president or the next president or the last president. It doesn't make any difference. I have to take full, and in selling, but in life, full and complete responsibility for my actions and the results. Because if I loosen up on that a little bit, then I can explain away anything. I can explain away weeks, months, whatever, of no sales or low sales. Pardon me. I learned that lesson in part from Lee Trevino, the famous golfer. He was struck in his career twice on the golf course by lightning. And he said in both cases, after he came to, I guess, my fault. Then people said, no, it was an act of God. And he said, no, I went out into an open field with thunder in the distance, with a steel thing in my hand called an umbrella. And then when it started raining, I went and stood under a tree in this open field. That's like, hello, I want to be struck by lightning, God. Mm-hmm. Please hit me. So he said in both cases, as he slumped to the ground, he said to himself, my fault. Mm-hmm. Well, when I walk out of a sale, it's my fault. Some of it is wrong person, wrong time, whatever. Sometimes it's lack of research. Sometimes if I get sloppy, I glossed over something I really should have listened to. Here's a quick one. We used to have what we call the executive package, and it was one of everything we sold back when we sold CDs and DVDs and so on. And I had everybody on a script. In the executive package, here's what you get. You get this, which you purchase by itself would be this, and this, and this, and this. And I got down to the CDs. This is on the phone. And I said, and if you ordered that separate, it'll be $199.95. And I heard this guy go, huh. And just softly, huh. So I plunged on and got to the end. And I discovered, this is hindsight, I had lost him when he discovered that any one piece in the package cost $199.95. The punchline was, if you buy it all individually, it's $795. But if you buy it today, it's $299 or something. I forget what the numbers were. But I heard him go, oh, that was the beginning and end of the lesson of that sale. I hung up, thought about it, sent everybody home a couple hours early because I didn't like to fiddle with the script within their earshot. And I dropped, and we'd sold thousands of these things. I dropped the individual pricing as I went through it. You get this, and you get this, and you get this, and you get this, and you get these CDs and this DVD. And if you bought it all separately, it would come to $795 or $1,200, whatever it was. But today, you can get it all for da-dum. And our sales, which were already rather impressive, went up like 15 or 20% because I had listened and caught what I'm sure a lot of other people had thought without grunting. Don't rule them out with the individual pricing before you get to the end. Mm-hmm. And then spring it on them. The good news and the bad news all at once. It would be $12.95. It's only, I really don't remember the numbers, mm-hmm. but it was about a 70% drop. Mm-hmm. But they heard the high price and the low price within seconds of each other. They didn't have time to rule themselves in or out. Mm-hmm. It's the little things. Let me give you an example. I have a couple of clients who some of you probably saw their television commercials. They sell the Medicare optional stuff And, and you have to make the change by December 10th or whatever. It comes around once a year. And more insurance agents are running those commercials than you thought there were insurance agents. So I'm looking at the ads and I spotted a problem, but no one had mentioned it to me. And then I picked up one existing client, one new client. And I said, you want to see your sales go up? Yeah. I said, I'm going to give you, in one, I closed him being a client on this point. I said, I'll give you the answer, but you got to sign up as a client. Well, how do I know you have the answer? I said, I've been at this a long time. Trust me, I got the answer. What it was down in the disclaimers at the bottom, it said you'll be connected with a licensed insurance agent. I always read the disclaimers because that's usually tells you that everything else they said is nonsense. So you'll be connected with a licensed insurance agent. And they put it in small type and they flashed it for a brief period of time, probably what the law allows, no longer. And so when they won an existing client, won the new sign up, I said, put an exclamation mark after insurance agent. Let's make it good news, not bad news. You're not going to talk to some telephone rep in a room who doesn't know anything about insurance. You're going to talk to a licensed insurance agent, exclamation mark, good news. Say in one where he'd already kept records, sales went up 20%. Calls went up more than that.
From an exclamation point?
An exclamation point. This is good news. And then I had them expand the type. They had it as small as you could do it legally. I said, blow it up and leave it up 20 seconds longer. Bring it up sooner than you need to and leave it there. And suddenly you're going to talk to the dreaded life insurance or insurance salesperson became a positive. And sales increase. It's the little tiny things, unless you're really new to selling and really bad. For those of us who have been at it a while, it's the little things. Listen for that grunt, which says, you ruled me out too soon. Look for the exclamation mark or the lack of an exclamation mark or whatever, and ask questions. Just look them dead in the eye and ask. They can't eat you. The worst they can do is say no.
Yep. It's so true. I always tell people, small hinges swing big doors.
True. True.
Look for that and it's there. But, you can only find that because you stayed plugged in. You didn't climb into the ivory tower and isolate yourself from everything. You stayed producing.
I've never quit selling, ever. People say, well, back when you were selling, I said, back when I was selling was 10 minutes ago before we got on the phone. Or I had to, stop what I was doing to be on your podcast or whatever. Been selling all day long, and it is 2:51 in California right now. I will have time to make 4 or 5 more sales after you and I are done today. I've always stayed in the game, so it's not a theory to me. J. Douglas Edwards, an old friend and one of my early mentors, who, by the way, was a jackass in person, but good from the stage. Doug Edwards and I, he taught me a great lesson. Zig and Doug Edwards and me, and if I thought I could probably come up with the other 8 or 10, we're sitting in a restaurant somewhere. Miami comes to mind, but that may not be right. And keep in mind, everybody at the table worked for me either full-time or they were there because I retained them to give part of a seminar. So I'm the boss and I'm probably 25. And Doug was old enough to be my father, probably my grandfather. And I said something, he says, well, that's the way you feel when you're young. But whatever, didn't make any difference what came after, but what it meant was nothing you say makes any difference because I've been at this longer. And I said, well, Doug, and I'm mildly embarrassed that I did this, but I said, Doug, I tell you what, why don't you pick a product that is sold in the home or in the business, but direct sales? You pick a product somebody at this table knows someone in this city who sells that product, and you and I will each go pick up a sample, and the first man back here to the table with the money wins the bet. He started shaking, literally shaking. And while his hands were up and he was shaking, I noticed that he bit his fingernails to the quick. My father always said, check the fingernails. If you're dealing with a fingernail biter, don't hire him. And it's too late. He was already working for me. And check the heels of their shoes. If they've let the heels run down, there's something else missing. And he always said, never hire anybody you haven't had meals with where you could see how they treated waiters and waitresses. And he said, those are the only three things you really need to know about anybody that you're going to hire. So anyway, I'm looking at Doug, and his hands are shaking. I don't want to over-exaggerate it, but his lips were trembling a little bit, bitten fingernails and worn down heels. And he said, well, I'm not going to do it. The short version of it, he said no. And he came up with some excuse. He was afraid to go make a sales presentation. Good talking from the stage about it. But Zig or Merle Frazier, one of the gurus at the table, there were a bunch of people there older than I was and had more experience, told me later, said, Ben, these sales he talks about, he hasn't made a sale in 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's all theory to him. It's
Mm-hmm.
the reason you hear him say things from the stage and you think, I could never do that. He never did it either.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something you heard and picked up and changed a few words and threw it out there, and people are busy taking notes,
Mm-hmm.
ruining their careers.
Yep. Crazy.
I decided somewhere along in there to always be selling and keep my hand in the game. So that when I tell you this works, it worked this morning.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love it. I talk to people and they're like, they're basically asking me kind of like when I was selling. I'm like, I'm selling right now. What are you talking about? I sell software. I sell consulting services. I sell speaking. I can never stop selling. Like, it's funny how people get these ideas in their heads. Like, we're talking right now about you buying something from me. Well, what makes you think I got out of sales?
Wes, maybe you're not good and they didn't recognize.
Maybe, yeah, I know. I'm talking to you, man. I gotta get better. But I love that advice. Like, I went to the Air Force Academy and they pound you with, attention to detail, right? Now, you get your room inspected, you have a SAMI, a Saturday morning inspection, right? And I didn't understand it at first, and eventually you start to appreciate it. But it's like your vanity mirrors, 45 degrees, cabinets, 45 degrees, the drawers, I forget the measurement, right? 6, 12, 18, 24 inches that had to be open so they could be inspected. Like, what the hell? Beds made and, but your gig line, right? Your shirt buttons lined up with your belt buckle, lined up with the zipper on your trousers, right? I mean, everything. And so, because you learn, like when you're flying an aircraft, that little bitty crack might be important on the fuselage.
Yeah,
maybe you should look for that, right? So, okay, attention to detail. So yeah, I'll look at people's appearance, and I always say, look at their shoes, look at their belt buckle, look at their belt, the accessories. Are they worn? Little things like that. How do they put themselves together? And it's a little harder now because like grunge is a thing. I mean, I'm in a t-shirt right now, right? So, but you can still kind of tell if you look closely. There are telltale signs about how somebody is put themselves together. And yeah, have a meal, see how they treat. I've always said, take somebody golfing. Go play 9 holes. Even if they don't golf, it might even be better if they don't golf. See how they handle adversity and challenges. Do they get frustrated and throw their clubs and, pound beer and sneak a flask on because they got to get drunk because it's too much pressure? I mean, you find out a lot of things about somebody in 2 hours of golf. Do they cheat?
Do they cheat? I mean, great Bobby Jones story. Bobby Jones belonged to East Lake.
Yeah.
The club I belonged to and my family belonged to. I was a tag along at East Lake, and there's a great story told about him. He was winning some tournament somewhere. And I'm making up numbers, but let's say he was 4 or 5 strokes ahead coming to the 18th or whatever, and he'd had a couple of missed strokes, one of which went down in the rough. But he came out, chipped up on the green, and put it out and wrote down his score and went to sign it. And his caddy said, Mr. Jones, that's not correct. That would cause you to lose the tournament. And you won the tournament. He said, well, you couldn't see it, but the ball down in the rough, I grounded my club by accident. That's a stroke. Yeah. No one on the planet knew Bobby Jones had grounded his club but Bobby Jones. He wouldn't sign a dishonest scorecard and lost the tournament as a result. Now that's class. People are always saying, what do you do when no one's looking? It's important. Yeah, is really important. I said that's especially important. I mean, that's what really counts. We can all be honest with 14 cameras on you down in the rough.
Yeah,
they know. But when you're by yourself, different story. I've always admired that.
Yep. Amen. Yeah, I think I've heard that story. I didn't start golfing. My dad bought me golf lessons for my 23rd birthday. I was at Texas A&M. The Air Force had sent me after the academy to study meteorology. And he bought me golf lessons. I'm like, Dad, I don't know if you love me or hate me. Man, I got into it. I was still single and I just had time on my hands. And man, when I get into something, I get into it. Texas in April, May, June, July, August, when I was there, it's hot. I'd be the only guy on the golf course, man. And I'm playing 2 and 3 balls and I'm just smacking and reading books. And, I got Harvey Pinnock's little red book over there. And,
many Ben Hogan's book there somewhere, I bet.
I don't know if I've got Hogan's book. Now you mention it.
You got to get it.
Yeah. I don't play as much anymore, but we have an annual get together in Scottsdale. A buddy of mine from the academy, his mom lives there, and she leaves the house. She stays with a neighbor and opens up her house for 8 hoodlums to come. And we golf a couple of days, and we go to the waste management pro-am, and you just watch on the Thursday, and we come home Friday. So we do that every February. I don't golf much anymore. And jiu-jitsu has jacked up my elbows, so I have a good excuse to not be good at golf anymore, but we have fun.
Charlie Sifford fell out of a tree and broke his arm when he was young, and his left arm would not crook. I think it was his left arm. Anyway, point was, he said the best thing ever happened to him. He didn't have to concentrate on keeping his arm straight in certain situations because he couldn't bend it anyway.
My left one won't straighten.
Okay. Here is a little minor thing. It's not minor, but something for your listeners. You mentioned it last time we talked, that you went to the Air Force Academy. My impression of you when you said that went up about 10 clicks because I know what it takes to go to the Air Force Academy or West Point or the Naval Academy or even the Coast Guard Academy. I'm Coast Guard. Not the academy, I'm just Coast Guard. So somebody asked me one time, how would you build a company from the ground up if you didn't inherit any problems or ex-employees? And I said, well, if it were possible, I would buy a mailing list of all the Eagle Scouts in the area. Well, Eagle Scouts, why? They could be in their 50s or 60s. Because they got to be an Eagle Scout because they were an unusual breed of person.
Mm-hmm.
And I would get a mailing list of West Point and the Air Force Academy and so on. Special group of people. I'm from the South, as you are. In the South, if you're talking to somebody and they have their hand up in front of their mouth like this, they're frequently showing you their Citadel ring. And Citadel ring is recognizable from 40 feet away. To a Citadel graduate, probably farther than that. But it's a way of saying, hi, I'm a winner. I'm proud of,
I don't wear my jewelry much anymore. My knuckles, my son jammed my knuckle. in jujitsu. So it's so fat. My wife got me this silicone, I guess, ring is my wedding ring. But yeah, they call us ring knockers. So you get one of those big academy rings, and they are identifiable from across the room.
I would figure out a way, have it cut and opened up. I'd figure out a way to get that.
Well, this one I can wear this one if I lick my finger. That'll fit on my right, but my wedding ring is silicone because my gold. We were actually just talking about that. My wife was looking at rings with my son and his fiance just last week. Got 2 kids got engaged over Christmas, and my wife's gotten to know this little family-owned business in the mall, but I guess they can take my ring, my gold ring, and they can enlarge it, but they give you a space or something. I don't know. It hooks under, kind of like a gap filler. Yeah. Because once it's over my knuckle, then it's loose. Then it might be come off. I don't know.
Girls in high school used to use Band-Aids and so on because she wanted to wear her boyfriend's ring, so that they put their own homemade expanders on the bottom. But to your listeners, little things like that. If I met you in a restaurant, we wouldn't have talked 5 or 10 minutes before you would know, even if I had to tell you who he was, that I worked with Dr. Napoleon Hill. My credibility goes up. And if they really know something about the motivational speaking sales business, then Earl Nightingale's name comes up, and so on. The credit, I call it fame by association, success by association.
Sure.
Many of the Earl worked for me. Dr. Hill worked for me. That isn't the issue. The issue is I knew them and worked with them, and therefore anything I say I'm making up numbers, twice the credibility it would say I would have if they didn't. Yeah. So look for those little hooks that you have. And if you don't have any, shame on you, go create some, meet some interesting people. That's how Charlie Manson and I wound up in his cell at San Quentin. I made a career out of looking for interesting people to meet, learn from, refer to.
Yeah. How did you make the transition from salesperson, manager to trainer? I mean, what compelled you to write a book? Because that's I've written a couple, but self-published, nothing like yours. I mean, it's a feat to make that switch.
It just happened, evolvement. I became a sales trainer. I became a speaker when my English teacher in high school said she took a liking to me for some reason. I'd been thrown out of that school, sent to private school, thrown out of that school, and then brought back to the public school because you have to be somewhere through your senior year. At least you did back then. For some reason, she'd heard all the funny stories about how clever I was and so on, not necessarily in a positive way. She took a liking to me. And she said to me, day one, as soon as I walked into her class late, Mr. Gay, I presume the whole class broke up when I came in late because they expected me to be late. I said, yes, how are you? And she got a chair from the front row, one of those chairs with a built-in writing area, spun it around next to her and said, you're going to sit here this year. And you're going to win the state writing championship. And you're going to speak at graduation. And I thought, you must not have studied my history, because who spoke at graduation, I thought, was the valedictorian and the salutatorian, and they were in no danger of me knocking them out of that slot. But I didn't know she had the ability to decide who wrote, memorized, and delivered the prayer. So sure enough, I won the state writing championship for something else, not for the prayer, but for something. And then I got to memorize the prayer and give it. And at the Atlanta Municipal Auditorium, I walked on stage with my class, walked down to the lectern and did like this. She taught me how to do that. And 3,000 people stood up. And I remember thinking, I hadn't said a word yet, but I like this. That was the beginning of my public speaking career. When I got in Holiday Magic, after a while, Holiday Magic Cosmetics, which for your listeners was quickly became the largest direct sales multi-level marketing company in the world, bigger than Amway and Shackley combined at the time. And but Bill Dempsey, the guy who had recruited us, quickly ran out of things to talk about. I mean, how many Saturday mornings can you say, work harder, don't take no for an answer, and so on. So it started being, Ben, tell them what you did this week, because I was starting to win the weekly things and so on. And I got up front and found I had a little knack for it. So it grew and grew and grew. And then a 25 city tour came up where the owner of the company, William Penpatrick, was going to go on a tour. And he must have said to somebody, who should I have? What lackey should I have with me to travel around, carry my suitcase, and introduce me? And it was me. So we spent 25 days together, I guess a little more than that, but 25 speaking engagements together in 25 roughly days. And I got where I really liked that. And I went from, 40 people on a Saturday morning in Atlanta in a little training room for Holiday Magic to 10 or 15,000 people. I don't think, except for a basketball game, I'd ever been around that many people, never mind speaking to them. By the time I came off of that tour, I was done. I was still went on to win a national contest after that, beating Zig and so on, and I won the mystery prize presidency of the company. But it was all based on my ability to communicate, either in writing or in speaking. And fortunately, I had a mother and father who taught me how to speak reasonably good English. They taught me how to speak perfect English. I learned enough to be reasonably good at it. And that carried me. One day we're out in San Rafael. I'm still in Atlanta. We're out in San Rafael and we're training our first group of trainers. I was one out, and they were training me and Zig and so on about how we were going to go back and train other people in our area. And we get to the back of the office and I forgot my manual. So I went back to the training room to get it. And I walked in the back of the training room. Fred Pape, the president of the company at the time, and William Penpatrick, the owner of the company, had their backs to me, and they're looking at a Sony Betamax. You're probably too young to remember, but it was a recording device.
Yeah, I remember.
It had a pop-up screen.
My friends whose dad was a doctor had a Betamax.
All right. It was cutting edge at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And that morning we had given some presentations and they got recorded. As I go back in to get the album, the manual I'd forgotten, I hear Fred Pape say to Bill Patrick, he's good. And I could hear my voice coming out of that cabinet. And they're looking at me on screen. And Bill said, I will pay more for the ability to effectively communicate than any other talent. I moonwalked out of the training room backwards through the door I just came in. I don't think I ever told Bill that to the day he died, but that was the day I thought, if I really get good at this, I'm not just going to be the guy from Atlanta. I can go somewhere. Communicate, awesome. Learn how to communicate, learn your presentation, learn how to perfect it and work on it and so on. Come early, stay late. I used to do a 10-day seminar, Wes, on how to sell, and be successful. There was other stuff in it, but how to sell, how to be effective and so on. And I've always feared the day when somebody figured out, although I talk about it openly now, that I could tell you everything I know about selling in about 10 minutes. It's so simple. Yeah. It's the reason it has no qualifications other than, can you sell? Will you bring orders in the door? And I could talk about what I did. And I expanded 10 minutes of information into 10 days, if you want the long version of it. And that's been it. So it wasn't a decision. And somewhere along the line, people started saying, you ought to write a book. So, that happened 24 books ago.
I asked my wife what she wanted, and she said an attentive lover, or a tent of lovers, but I don't remember. I wasn't really
you weren't paying attention. You weren't paying attention.
Yeah, I mean, it is. So it's like I tell people, like golf, right? Golf's simple. hit the ball with a square club face with a descending, accelerating swing. That's golf. Okay, give me $1,000. Your lesson's over, right? But it's like, how big is the golf industry? Because I mean, that's all you're doing, right?
Yep.
Hit the ball, descending, square, accelerate. There you go. But it's the little things, huh?
Always, club head speed is very effective there. My father he wasn't tiny, but think of James Cagney, the actor. They looked very much alike, about the same height and attitude. And I had my godfather, Dick Stewart, was, I'm guessing, 6'3", 220 pounds of muscle, big cigar, and he would get up, and when he hit a ball, it sounded like a covey of quail taking off. And Dad would get up and hit the ball, and you'd hear click. And he always outdrove my godfather. Clubhead, speed, finesse, practice, call it what you will. And it drove my godfather crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm big, I'm strong, I hit the ball harder. And Dad would say, I don't know what to tell you. Click. 20 yards out, 30 yards out.
Yep. Mastery. Well, I will let you get back and make your sales so you can enjoy your evening. But I appreciate you making time, coming right back on, sharing more your wisdom.
I appreciate it. I love talking to Southerners who are professional and skilled, and you are an achievement. I repeat, when I heard Air Force Academy, when I got off and went back to the house, I said to Dee, did I tell you Wes went to the Air Force Academy? And he said, no. I said, yeah. He mentioned it casually. And I was so impressed because I've known people. I know what that takes. And so make sure you mention it and understand, as you know, you're a winner. And you've been a winner. That admiral who gives a speech, make your own bed, or make your bed, or something, reminded me of what you were talking about being dressed a certain way and sharp and so on. And as he said in the early days of his career, why do I have to make my bed? He probably had a mother that did it up until that time. But then he discovered his entire military career, all the way to admiral, started with making his bed every morning properly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're talking about guys being made to shave, in the field.
Yeah.
They're like,
why?
Attention to detail, right? It's that discipline, right? Yep. Make sure you got everything squared away, everything, including shaving. So, yeah, it all matters.
Well, my offer to you stands like it did last time. Anytime I can be of service, you call me. We will quickly work it out, and I'll serve you any way I can.
I appreciate it. You're a man of your word. Thanks for coming back on. Have a great night.
Same to you. Bye.
I told you it was good. Hang out with people who are where you want to be. Amen. Reset your comfort zone. Sell from a position of strength. Some will, some won't. So what? Someone's waiting. I'm glad I got to give him a little nugget there. That's right. From good old Jim Rohn. So, dress the part, look the part. Be a professional. Okay. Get to know, as in N-O. I think it's bad advice. Don't ask any question they can answer yes or no to. Hell no. I'd rather hear no early than get strung along. So say a hard no is better than a soft maybe, soft sweet maybe. That's right. Move on. Get in front of people that can buy. Our true job is to sort, sift, and separate, to prospect, to disqualify, not sell. That's the key to longevity in the sales profession. Like you said, selling hasn't changed. Can I trust you? Sell a good product at a competitive price to the right people. Script in chunks to be disciplined in sales and to win in sales. So much good info. It's worth 2.5 hours. Okay. Go back and listen to it again. Listen to double speed and get through the stories again. Get them in your brain. That's how you become a person of class, quality, and substance. Learn to always sell yourself first. He's written 24 books. Man, just so many So many good things. So I hope this helped. If you want to discuss this and more, I do it every Monday at the Sell More of Everything course, sellmoreoferything.com. If you want to go through it on demand, makeeverysale.com. Hit me up. I'll help you sell better. Thanks for listening. I'll go sell something.